blood, screams, and a broken friendship no one saw coming. Claire stood barefoot in the rain, cradling her son tightly. Across the street, Rachel held her daughter by the arm, her eyes full of fire. Neighbors watched silently, too stunned to speak. The argument had shaken the whole street. It wasn't just shouting, it was heartbreak and betrayal, twisted into angry words. "Don't ever come near us again," Rachel shouted, voice trembling. "You're dead to me, Claire." Claire didn't say anything. Her lips quivered. She looked down at the boy in her arms and whispered, "I never meant for this to happen." But it had happened, and now there was no way to undo it. How did two women, once inseparable, closer than sisters, turn into bitter enemies? It started years ago with one simple act of kindness, but kindness can turn dangerous when trust breaks.
Alakaztra Fairy Folktales.
Claire and Rachel met when they were both 23 years old. They had just gotten married and moved to the same quiet neighborhood in a small Nigerian town. Their houses were next to each other, two flats with rusted gates and chipped paint, but filled with young love and hope. Their friendship began one morning when Rachel came over to borrow salt. Claire invited her in, offered a plate of jollof rice, and the two women talked for hours. That was the beginning. From that day on, they became best friends. Claire was soft-spoken and graceful. She had gentle eyes and a warm smile. Her husband, Michael, worked as a tailor. He was quiet and kind, always humming to himself while he sewed clothes in their small room. Rachel was the lively one. She laughed loudly, talked fast, and walked with energy. Her husband, David, sold phone chargers and earphones at the market. He was a loud man, funny but short-tempered. They argued a lot, but Rachel would always say, "It's just how we love." Claire and Rachel did everything together. They cooked together, went to the market together, and helped each other with house chores. When Rachel's baby girl Grace had a fever, it was Claire who stayed up all night beside her. When Claire's son, Joshua, took his first steps, Rachel was the one cheering and recording it on her phone. People in the area called them the two mothers. They walked everywhere together, baby strapped on the back or held in hand, laughter in their voices. Their bond was strong, but cracks began to form slowly. It started when Claire got a small job as a secretary at a nearby pharmacy. It wasn't much, just helping with records and selling medicine, but she earned enough to repaint her house and buy a new set of curtains. Rachel didn't like it. "You're lucky Michael allows you to work," she said one day. "David would never let me." Claire laughed awkwardly. "Maybe he'll change his mind one day." But Rachel's smile didn't reach her eyes. Things got worse when Rachel's husband lost some money in a business deal. She started borrowing. First small things, rice, soap, milk. Then one day she asked Claire for money, 10,000 naira. "I'll return it next week," she said. Claire gave it gladly. Weeks passed, then months. Claire asked gently one day, "Rachel, do you think you'll be able to return the money soon?" Rachel snapped, "So now you're counting money with me. Are we not sisters?" Claire apologized, but the words stayed in her heart like a wound. Their children started school. Joshua, Claire's son, was quiet and serious. Grace, Rachel's daughter, was smart but playful. Joshua always came home with top marks, while Grace struggled a bit. Then something big happened. Joshua won a scholarship to a private school in the city. Claire was overjoyed. She called Rachel to tell her. Rachel forced a smile. Wow, that's good, very good. Just don't forget us when he becomes president. But later that week, Claire overheard Rachel talking to another neighbor. Some people think because their child can read ABC, they've arrived. Claire felt the words like a slap. Still, she stayed silent. She believed things would get better, but they didn't. One day, Claire threw a small birthday party for Joshua. She invited only a few people. Rachel and Grace, of course, were at the top of the list. Rachel didn't show up. Claire found her later that night sitting outside her house crying. "What's wrong?" Claire asked gently. Rachel wiped her eyes. "David slapped me again. I didn't want to come and ruin your party." Claire hugged her tightly. "You can't keep staying in pain, Rachel. Come stay with us, at least for tonight." Rachel pulled away quickly. "So now you want to save me. You think you're better than me because your husband doesn't beat you." No, I just want to help." "I didn't ask for your help." Claire stood in silence as Rachel stormed into her house. From that day, things changed. Rachel stopped coming over. She stopped picking Claire's calls. When they passed each other on the street, Rachel looked the other way. Then one morning, everything exploded. Claire was hanging clothes outside when she heard shouting. "Thief!" Rachel's voice rang out. Claire rushed outside. "She's sleeping with my husband!" Rachel screamed. "Claire is sleeping with David!" The whole street stopped. Claire froze. "What?" Rachel's eyes were wild. "He told me everything. While I was suffering, you were sleeping with him." Claire was shocked. She hadn't even spoken to David in weeks. The accusation made no sense. "Rachel, please, stay away from me. Stay away from my daughter." Michael came outside confused. "What's happening?" But Claire couldn't answer. Her throat was tight, her heart breaking. From that day, nothing was the same, and it was only the beginning. Rachel's voice echoed in Claire's head long after the crowd had scattered. "She's sleeping with my husband!" Claire stayed inside her house for 2 days. Curtains closed, phone off. Her husband, Michael, tried to comfort her, but she barely spoke. Joshua asked, "Mommy, why is Auntie Rachel angry with you?" She hugged him and didn't answer. Michael believed her. He said it plainly. "I know you. You're not like that." But the neighborhood didn't care about truth. Whispers began. At the grocery shop, women stopped talking when Claire walked in. At church, people stared longer than usual. Some gave tight smiles. Others didn't smile at all. Rachel, on the other hand, became louder. She told the story like it was gospel. "I found the text," she told a neighbor. "Late night calls. I always knew she wanted what I had." It wasn't true. David had texted Claire once 2 months ago, asking her to talk to Rachel about their constant fights. Claire never even replied. But Rachel's pain had turned into poison, and it was spreading fast. One hot afternoon, Claire decided to confront her. She walked next door and knocked. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt like jelly. Rachel opened the door halfway, arms folded. "Rachel, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," Rachel said, eyes cold. "You're my friend," Claire said. "I would never do that to you. You know that." Rachel laughed bitterly. "I used to know, not anymore. Please, just tell me what you saw. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe..." "You think I'm stupid," Rachel snapped. "You think I don't see how you look at him, how you flaunt your peace in my face. The perfect little wife, the perfect little life." Claire was stunned. This isn't about David, is it? Rachel blinked. You've been angry for a long time, Claire said softly. Since I started working, since Joshua won that scholarship, since your life didn't go the way you wanted. Rachel's face twisted. Don't you dare pity me. I'm not pitying you. I love you. I miss you. I miss us. Rachel slammed the door. That night, Claire cried for hours. The friendship she once called a sisterhood had turned into a wound. 2 weeks passed. Rachel continued to spread her story. David stayed silent. Michael tried to ignore the stares, but one day he came home with clenched fists. I heard 2 men talking outside the shop today, laughing, saying you're a husband snatcher. Claire touched his arm gently. Do you believe them? He looked her in the eyes. Number, but this has to stop. Claire nodded. She had a plan. The next Sunday, she dressed up and went to church with Michael and Joshua. She wore her brightest yellow dress. She greeted everyone with smiles. She stood and testified during service. I thank God for the storm, she said calmly, because when lies rise like waves, the truth becomes your anchor. People listened. After service, Claire approached the pastor's wife. Quietly, she explained what had happened. The woman hugged her and said, "Leave it to God. He will fight for you." But Claire didn't stop there. She wrote a letter to David and dropped it off. It said, "Dear David, I have never spoken to you in private and I never will. Whatever you are going through in your marriage, please fix it. But do not use my name to cover your mistakes. I am someone's wife, someone's mother, and someone's friend, though she has forgotten that. Speak the truth, Claire." Rachel never mentioned the letter, but David did. The next day, he walked up to Michael at his shop and said, "I didn't mean for all this to happen." Michael didn't shake his hand, but the rumors began to slow. The street grew quiet again. Rachel, however, stayed distant. She now walked with Grace alone, barely speaking to anyone. One afternoon, Claire saw them by the corner shop. Grace's sandals were torn. She was limping. Claire couldn't help it. She walked over. "Rachel," she said. Rachel turned sharply. "What?" "Grace's leg. She's limping." Rachel looked down. "She'll be fine." Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a small pair of slippers she had bought for Joshua last year but never used. They're new. Let her have them. Rachel stared at the slippers, then at Claire. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Grace looked up at her mom. "Can I?" Rachel nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said in a low voice. Claire smiled. "You're welcome." She turned and walked away before her tears could fall. That night, Rachel sat alone in her living room, staring at the wall. David wasn't home. She picked up her phone and scrolled through old pictures. Pictures of her and Claire, laughing, cooking, holding their babies together. They looked like joy. They were joy. Rachel closed her eyes. "I broke something I can't fix," she whispered. 1 week later, Claire heard a knock on her door. She opened it to see Rachel standing there with a bowl of okra soup. "For you," she said. "I cooked too much." Claire took the bowl. "Thank you." Rachel shifted her feet. "Claire, I'm sorry." Claire nodded. "I know." Tears filled Rachel's eyes. "I was drowning. I grabbed the wrong person to blame." Claire reached out and hugged her. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in months, it felt like healing had begun. Weeks passed. The air on the street felt different, softer, like the wind itself was tired of carrying the weight of gossip. Claire and Rachel didn't return to how things used to be, but something new had begun. Not loud laughter or all-day visits, but quiet check-ins, gentle smiles, and polite conversation. One Sunday afternoon, Rachel knocked on Claire's door. This time it wasn't with food, it was with tears. "Can I sit?" she asked. Claire opened the door wider. Of course. Rachel sat slowly, clutching her purse to her chest. "I went to see a counselor," she said. "At church, I told her everything about the fights at home, the anger, the jealousy, everything." Claire nodded quietly, letting her speak. "I was angry at my life," Rachel continued, "at David, at myself, and somehow you became the easy target." She paused, eyes shining. "You didn't deserve it, not a single bit." Claire reached across the table and took her hand. "I know, but I also know pain can make people do things they regret." Rachel laughed sadly. "I regret everything." "Then start again," Claire said. "That's what I'm doing too." Rachel blinked. "You?" Claire smiled faintly. "Michael lost his job 2 weeks ago. We're struggling now. I've been selling snacks at the junction just to keep things afloat." Rachel gasped. "But you didn't say, I didn't want pity. Besides, you've gone through worse." The two women sat in silence for a moment, holding the quiet like it was something sacred. Then Rachel whispered, "You're stronger than me." Claire shook her head. "We're both strong, we just carry it differently." By the end of the month, Rachel made a big decision. She left David. It wasn't easy. He begged, he cried, he threatened, but Rachel stood firm. "I can't keep bleeding in silence," she told Claire. "If I stay, I'll disappear." She moved back to her mother's place in another part of town. Grace changed schools. The street felt emptier without them, but it was the right move. Claire helped her pack. She tied the boxes, carried the bags, hugged Grace tightly and whispered, "Be brave, little one." Before Rachel got in the car, she turned to Claire. "You saved me," she said. Claire wiped her eyes. "We saved each other." They hugged for a long time. Then Rachel was gone. Months rolled by like quiet waves. Claire's snack business grew. She started adding meat pies and zobo. She painted a small sign, "Claire's Delight," and set it up by the corner. Joshua was doing well in his new school, sending letters home that made her heart swell. One Saturday morning, as she arranged her cooler by the street, she heard a familiar voice. "Selling meat pies and still looking fine." Claire looked up. Rachel was standing there smiling. She looked different, lighter, freer. Grace was beside her, holding her hand tightly. "I thought you moved," Claire said, surprised. "I did," Rachel replied, but I came to visit. I wanted to see the place that gave me back my strength." Claire handed them 2 meat pies. "On the house." Rachel laughed. "You'll run bankrupt like that." "I'll risk it." They sat together under the mango tree by the roadside. Kids played nearby. Joshua ran over, hugging Grace. Laughter floated in the air. Rachel leaned back. "You know, I still remember the first time I knocked on your door." "You came for salt," Claire said, grinning, "and stayed for the friendship." They both smiled. Then Rachel looked serious. "Claire, I want to say something, one last thing." Claire looked at her curious. If I had lost you forever, I would never forgive myself. I don't know if we'll ever be the same again, but I want you to know you were my sister. You still are. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I never stopped loving you, Rachel, even when it hurts. They hugged again, not because it fixed everything, but because it meant everything. 1 year later, Claire stood proudly in front of a small painted shop. A blue sign hung above, Claire's Delight Bakery. She had done it, grown from a small cooler to a full business. Joshua was in secondary school now. Michael had started sewing uniforms for a private school nearby. Things weren't perfect, but they were better. Across town, Rachel had become a social worker. She helped women like herself, ones who were afraid to leave, afraid to speak, afraid to hope. She told her story to groups, and each time she ended it with the same words. There was a time I drowned in anger. I almost destroyed the best friendship I ever had. But forgiveness found me, and it saved me. On Claire's birthday, Rachel showed up unannounced with a cake in one hand and Grace in the other. The two mothers stood side by side again, not just as friends, but as survivors, as women who fought through betrayal, heartbreak, and silence, and still chose to love. Because sometimes the deepest wounds don't destroy it, they bloom.